Hey, good evening. It's Wednesday, December 28th. Just 3 more days left to go in 2022. And welcome to Everyday Talk 24/7. Great to have you here. As we wind down the beginning of 2022 and begin to look at 2023, it's important to realize those dates are man-made. It's a way of counting, but God is the one who controls time. And his issues don't change from year to year. So as you think about 2023, and we hear about New Year's resolutions and change and all those kinds of things, what's important to remember is that what God has called us to doesn't change. It remains constant and faithful, just as God remains constant and faithful. As I talked about last night, God is interested in his people developing, growing, building, cultivating Christian character. And I read some things that my wife Ruth had written about the importance of character. I'm going to revisit some of those concepts again tonight, looking at a different passage. Last night we looked at Galatians 5:22 and 23 about the fruit of the Spirit. Tonight we're going to talk about wisdom from above, from James 3:17. Now I've got playlists both on fruit of the Spirit and wisdom from above, where I go into each of the components individually. But I'm just going to pick one out from James 3 and wisdom from above. And it's open to reason. The reason I want to deal with that is because so much of what we're involved with in the Christian life in general, but particularly even in the Christian life, is relational conflict, problems, why we don't get along with each other. And the focus typically about why we're having problems, why I'm upset, why there's stress, is the other person, the other situation. And what Christian character does, if we embrace the fruit of the Spirit, and if we really live a life dedicated to faithfully living out wisdom from above, then the focus moves away from the other person. It moves away from me, and it moves towards God and his word. And that's something that always is the right approach to take. It frees us from so much stress and conflict because God gives us direction. His faithfulness means that you and I can faithfully pursue him. In James 3, we have this large portion of the chapter in the early part devoted to the destructive power of the tongue, the words that you and I speak, the relational forest fires that we spread with our tongue. And then James points out that's connected from wisdom from below, which is demonic, which is upsetting, which causes strife, which causes jealousy, which causes bitterness, discord, upset, anger, frustration. All that stuff is flowing from wisdom from below. In stark contrast to that, in verse 17 of that third chapter of James, we see wisdom from above. And there are 7 qualities there. And right in the middle of those 7 qualities is open to reason. Some translations could translate it considerate, understanding. But open to reason is a really helpful translation. The ESV translates it that way. And I think that's the right one in this situation. But notice what wisdom from above looks like, as opposed to conflict. And you can immediately see the sharp distinction between wisdom from below and wisdom from above. Wisdom from above is first pure, it's peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and fruits, impartial and sincere. So I said, I've got a whole playlist on each of these, and I'd recommend you looking at that if you have time. But right at the middle, open to reason means that I am considerate of other people. I want to hear them. One of the great epiphanies, awakenings I had as a parent when we had 5 teenagers was I thought that I had to be right all the time. I thought I had to be in the center of things. And if you had asked me at that time, a long time ago, if I was open to reason, I would have said, of course I'm open to reason, just ask me. Well, you see the problem with that. It doesn't matter if I think I'm open to reason. What matters is, do the people that I'm interacting with, do they think I'm open to reason? The parents, siblings, those of you who have teaching responsibilities, do you have the courage to ask people, do you think I'm open to reason? And not jump down their throat if you get an answer you don't like. That's a goal of wisdom from above. In terms of all this turmoil and strife that so sadly marks even Christian homes, and sometimes especially Christian homes, a lot of it flows down from the fact we're not really open to what the other person has to say. As Ruth points out, biblically defined Christian character must be recognized in the life of each person desiring to follow Christ. And one hallmark of that biblically defined character being recognized is, are you and I open to reason? Or we already have a closed mind? Or we just come at things, we don't listen to learn, we listen to win our case. We have to listen well, be open to reason before we can even begin to talk. And if you want to build trust in relationships, the people you interact with, they need to be convinced that you're open to hearing what they have to say. Otherwise, it's going to shut right down. This is particularly true in dealing with teenagers, but really it's applicable, appropriate to deal with in any relationship that you have. If it's in a teaching or encouraging or instructing relationship, are you open to reason? If you've got conflict in relationships, like with brothers and sisters or friends, and there just seems to be that edge, have the courage to ask the question, hey, do you think I'm being open to reason? Am I reasonable? Do you really think that I hear you? See, that's a big step to embracing Christian character. That's a big step to building relationships. Yes, it's a hard step because you may hear something you don't want to hear. But as the Proverbs say, a wise man, a wise woman, a wise child loves a rebuke because we learn from it. Being open to reason. It's a huge part of building Christian character. It's a huge part of having relationships that are thriving and growing as opposed to ones where there's a conflict all the time. If you have a lot of conflict in your life, think first to ask the question, do you really think I'm open to reason? That could be a life-changing question. It can make a big change in your whole relationship with God, people with others, stress level, all of that. Christian character. We can't live without it. And if we do, we create chaos. But if we can embrace it, then we can know the peace of knowing that we're walking the way that God wants us to. And that's the that's the thought for this night. Thanks so much for being here. Check us out everydaytalk247.com. If you haven't subscribed, turn on post notifications. These videos will come right to you. Thank you for your support, with your prayer support, your encouragement, your comments, your questions, your feedback. Those of you who support financially, all that. Thank you so much for that. And Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow